Good morning, grade 10s. Mr. Matisse here. Today you'll be writing a practice task for the literacy test in preparation for that. And today you're going to be looking at reading responses and multiple choice short answer questions related to those reading responses. So before we go and look at some examples, I'd like to talk a little bit about my goals here for today. We're going to be reviewing some strategies that you can use for reading on the literacy test and really for reading in general, and then review some strategies for how to take multiple choice and answer multiple choice questions. And then we'll look at some strategies you can use to answer short answer questions. This is the weighting chart for the literacy test. You can see that 48% of the literacy test, 48% of your mark, comes from your answers to the multiple choice questions. There are 39 questions, which means each question is just over 1%. It's worth just over 1%. So you don't want to treat this lightly. It actually adds up to quite a lot. When you're answering the multiple choice questions, you'll be filling in a bubble page that looks like this. Today you're just going to circle on the page, but on the test day you will be looking at this. It's really important that you fill each bubble in completely. You sign your name down here and print your name down here, because if you do not write that information down, then they will not know who this test belongs to. And that could actually have quite an impact on your results on the test. It would result probably in a failure, actually. And then there will be a section over here, you'll see a student questionnaire, and that's just something that you can answer at the end if you have time when you're writing the literacy test. Okay, on the literacy test there are a number of different types of reading that you're going to see. You're going to see a newspaper report. You're going to read one. You're also going to write one, but you will read a newspaper report and answer some questions. You'll see a dialogue, so a conversation between two people. You'll see a real-life narrative, so a story about a person. The graphic text, which uses images and diagrams and charts and graphs to help convey information. And then you'll see an information paragraph. You'll do 5 different types of reading on the test itself. So this is an example of a news report. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the reading strategies you can use before you begin to read. So even before, it's wise for you to kind of think about some things before even reading the entire thing. So you can see over here we've got skim, so I'm just going to kind of look around the text. I'll take a look at the pictures. I'm going to look at some of the key information, anything that stands out to you. That's what skimming is. Text features refers to bold text. We might look at the information down here, and you can see that this tells you where the information came from. That actually might give you some detail or give you some insight as to what this article is about. And then, of course, the headline's going to stand out. And what that's going to help you do is maybe activate some background knowledge. So I look at the title, it says the high school starts at 10 a.m. I see the picture and these people are happy. I might think, geez, I'd love to start school at 10 a.m. I hate getting up early. So you start to kind of make connections and predictions about what the article could be about. And really, you haven't really read anything yet. You've actually just kind of taken a look at what's available. So now, when you do begin to read, one of the best things you can do is always consider your purpose. Now, I don't advise that you read the questions beforehand. For this article, there's 7 questions. That's a lot of things to try and remember. I would suggest you go in and read it cold, just to kind of get a sense of what the article's about. So really your purpose in the first place is to determine what is the main idea, what is this article about, and how can I make sense of it. As you read, this is really important, highlight or underline specific details. Anything that you think is really important, because some of the short answer questions will ask you to highlight specific details. As you read, you're going to want to make connections. How do you relate to this? Slow down as well. It's a good strategy. If you're not understanding something, slow down and maybe even reread that section. It's actually wise to reread this article more than once. One time, read it just to get... Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use some of those pre-reading and during reading strategies we just talked about and read this news article. So I'm going to start by looking at the title. This high school starts at 10 a.m. That's kind of interesting. September 2009, a Toronto high school started classes an hour later than usual as part of a project to determine if extra sleep improves student attendance and grades. That sounds interesting. Research shows teens' brains are wired to go to bed late and get up late. Boy, I remember in high school, I definitely was one to stay up really, really late. And so I struggled to get up early. At puberty, the chemical that induces sleep is secreted around 11 p.m. and shuts off around 8 a.m. Studies have shown that about 3/4 of teens don't get their necessary 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep at night. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight all this. This is sounding pretty important. It's kind of explaining the biology behind sleep and teens, and it seems rather important, especially statistics that are involved. School found that punctuality, attendance, grades, and credits earned were the worst in first period classes, which started at 8:50 a.m. Wow, well, these guys have a little bit better than us, I guess, starting at 8:15. Teachers said many students came to class too tired to learn. Well, I know I've seen that. Some schools that have experimented with a later schedule report less student depression, fewer dropouts, better test scores, and higher grades. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. It seems pretty important because it's really talking about the results of this. The principal has heard positive reviews from staff and students and said enrollment is up because of the new hours. He knows critics will say the new timetable coddles lazy teens and doesn't reflect the real world. But he points out that not everyone starts work at 9 a.m. There's a biological need for it, he says. So really, I kind of got lots of information there. Of course, I'd finished reading the article, but I've got the gist of it here. Okay, so here's a question related to the article. It says, which word is closest in meaning to coddles as used in paragraph 5? So here's some strategy we can use to try and answer some of these questions. The first and most important really is to scan and reread. So I'm going to go back to the article and find where it uses that word. And usually the question will have something that says, in paragraph 5 or this line. That's an indication that this is a good strategy, that you should go back and reread that section. And not just where the word is used in paragraph 5, right? But you should actually kind of go back and see what other language is used around or in the entire paragraph. So that's the first thing I can do. I can also eliminate incorrect answers. So I might look at all the answers and decide right away, just kind of look at them and decide if any one of them doesn't work, doesn't make sense. And so if I look at them, I look at ignores, interests, pampers, and punishes. I have to come back and think about that. The last thing I might do is make inferences. And this is kind of really activating my background knowledge to see if I can make a connection to this, to see if I can understand it. Maybe I've heard the word used before, and I can take a guess at that because of what I know from my previous experience. So there's 4 options there. I've got the text over here. If I look at the sentence it's used in, it says, he knows critics will say the new timetable coddles lazy teens, doesn't reflect the real world. But he points out that not everyone starts work at 9 a.m. So when I look at the way that it's used there, I kind of look at ignores and I think, well, if it's used in that sense, it doesn't really seem to make sense. So I could probably go ahead and eliminate ignores, because even if I put it in there, say the new timetable ignores lazy teens, it seems kind of negative to say that all teens are lazy, but I don't really think that works. Maybe interest. Well, yeah, this seems to be something they might like, so it could be interest. So I'm going to hold on to that because it's an option. It might not be correct, but it seems to fit. Then I look at the next one and I think pampers. Well, yeah, that might also fit too, because again, it kind of relates to the idea of critics and they're criticizing this idea. Punishes, well, no, I don't think it's that, because it seems to me, based on the article, that they seem to enjoy it. They enjoy this new timetable. So I've been able to eliminate 2 options, and I kind of left with these 2 here. So really what I can do is I have to think about how to make sense of these words. And I go back to the sentence again. I'm rereading this now for a 3rd time. He knows critics will say the new timetable. So I look at that word critics, and I know critics are people who kind of judge or have a negative view of this. And you can see that's true here, because they feel it doesn't reflect the real world. They don't necessarily approve of this. And so when I think about a potential answer, if it's interest or Pampers, I might go back and again, I think I need to activate my background knowledge here. Pampers, I think of the diapers, right? You pamper a baby with Pampers, and really, if you look at the dictionary definition of Pampers, it means to give excessive care, and really, I think, when I look at the way it's used in that sentence, it seems to be more fitting that would be the meaning, that it means excessive care. So I think that Pampers would actually be the correct answer here. Now, I know that it probably seems like a lot to think this way, but really, you need to consider these answers and really use some of these strategies to help you eliminate some of these answers so that you have a better chance of getting the correct answer. Okay, so that wraps it up for today's lesson. And again, just kind of review some of the goals. We looked at some strategies for reading on the literacy test. Remember, there's the 5 different types. And then, of course, there's those pre-reading strategies where we skim and scan, we ask questions, we preview important information, look at the picture, highlight anything that we think is relevant. And then, of course, we looked at some strategies for multiple choice questions, eliminating answers we know to be incorrect, going back and rereading, and looking at the sections where the question refers to. We didn't really talk about strategies for short answer questions today, but you will see that in another video, probably in your Period 4 class, I believe. All right, just a final reminder that if you are interested in seeing these videos again in their original form as created by Mr. Broadbent, go ahead to youtube.com, type in UCC Literacy, and there they are. Mr. Broadbent made these last year, and you'll get his version with all the great puns and a little more detail about the test. So it'd be really wise for you to check these videos out a little bit closer to the actual literacy test. And there they are. You can see all 4 of them are there, and these are from last year, and you're more than welcome to see them and view them anytime you wish.